Okay, so we are recording class for today because obviously we have quite a few that are going to be out. I'm going to try to make sure that everybody gets the content that they need. Otherwise, this will be a difficult chapter for all of us. All right. We ended last week, and I was trying to just kind of give you a quick little taste of what this whole World War I thing and make you at least a little bit interested in some stuff. I even passed around some items that you guys will probably remember, hopefully. You guys remember the coin?
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't really get into it. I just kind of gave you a quick little taste of, hey, this is the direction we're heading. This is what this thing is, right? If you will remember, I let you guys listen to a couple songs last week as well. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
All right. The first one here is I Didn't Raise My Boy to Be a Soldier. All right. What ism does that illustrate most?
Isolationism. Yeah.
Very good. All right. It illustrates isolationism. Now, somehow we're going to move from I didn't raise my boy to be a soldier to, remember the name of the other song? Two words that are going to be important for everything we say. Over there. Remember this? Remember that catchy little over there, over there. Send your boys with a prayer to get blown up and stuff like that, right? And so you got like your songs, yeah? So we're talking here about a massive seismic shift in philosophy in this country from isolationism to being ready to go to war. All right. Now, how did we get there? The very first thing we need to understand is that Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, okay, are very important for everything moving forward. His 14 points essentially are going after a pile of isms that were responsible for the mess that we were in. What were those isms? Name one. You say militarism. Both of you said militarism, all right? We're going after militarism, which is a
buildup of military ammunitions.
Yeah. So we're talking about like nationwide, and it's not just our nation, it's all nations, okay? Nationwide military buildup of planks and tanks and bombs and everything you can imagine, okay? It's but if you're to look up Webster's definition here of militarism, it's when military preparedness is of utmost importance to a nation or state. Okay? When military preparedness is of utmost importance to a nation or state. His 14 points, they go after militarism. What's another one? They go after nationalism. Okay? Nationalism was very much responsible for the conditions that led to World War I. Bear in mind, even with those nations that we're talking about here, that, like say Serbia, okay? What really incited Serbia to be behind the Black Hand, who was behind the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary? Serbian nationalism, okay? We had all of these people groups, nationalism, okay? And whenever you believe that your nation or state is more important, better than all other nations or states or people groups or cultures, then you're going to promote that, sometimes using violence. Agreed? What's another one of the isms it went after? Huh? Okay, like what, 8, 9 of the 14 points went after imperialism, right? Adjusting colonial claims of this area and this area and this area and this area, okay? It went after imperialism in major ways. And quite honestly, when we talk about the belligerents, does everybody know what a belligerent is? Belligerent is somebody who is involved in a war, okay? All of the nations, all of the belligerents of World War I, how many of them were engaged in imperialism?
All of them, pretty much.
Virtually all of them, okay? Very good. So we have imperialism that's been gone after. All right. There's a couple other things in the 14 points that he does go after that aren't necessarily an ism. Like for example, does anyone remember what this is about? Okay, so one of those 14 points is freedom of the seas in peacetime and wartime. Okay. no unrestricted submarine warfare, which is kind of what drug the United States into this thing, okay? And then finally, the very 14th point, the last point, is actually his outline for a plan called the League of Nations, okay? And that, my friend, is Woodrow Wilson's point in life. That is his baby, it is his brainchild, and he thinks that that is the most important contribution that he could possibly make, and he's going to maintain every effort to make sure that it passes. And it's actually because he is so committed to that that he ends up refusing to compromise on any part of it, which is why the United States never joined the thing, okay? And you'll want to know that because that's actually two different test questions, okay? So we'll get there. Wilson's 14 points, they matter. What he's basically going to do is he's going to couch the United States goals for going into World War I, and he's going to couch them in progressive terms. Because what era are we in right now? The era of progressivism, okay? Everything he's doing, he's trying to sell to the United States and to the world using a progressive mindset, okay? Essentially, the United States going into World War I was progressivism going to war. And the whole world has these big expectations, and you'll see what I mean by that by the time we're done with this thing, okay? So let me get into some stuff, all right? This is the medallion that I passed around the other day, all right? Here's what ends up happening. This particular coin, the one I hold in my hand right here, was actually struck in Germany, okay? Which is why all of the language is in German. The Goetz medallion ends up being a pretty famous thing. And one of these that's made in Germany as an original is worth about $15,000, okay? Pretty good little chunk of change. Even if you were to say this is a post-made replica, it's still worth quite a bit because a bunch of these were printed up. Now let's figure out why, okay? This was a Goetz medallion. Do you know what the Germans are actually trying to say with this coin? Look at this. Do you know what that person is?
Skeleton.
It is a skeleton. You know where that skeleton is? That is a ticket office. And if you look at it, it says Cunard-Linie, which is German for the Cunard Line. All right? The Cunard Line is still an ocean liner today. I actually get advertisements from the Cunard Line to go sell in Europe if I want to. Okay? Still a thing today. The Cunard Line was the one selling tickets to go on which ship? The Lusitania. Okay? And if you look at the medallion here, we got a whole line of people, okay, that are lined up to get a ticket for death. Do we see that? And we see one of these people standing in line. What's he holding? It's what? He's holding, what would people read in those days? He's holding a newspaper, okay? The newspaper, printed big enough that you can see, says U-boat danger, U-boat danger. The Germans are trying to say here, okay? You see the author's initials down here at the bottom, Karl Goetz, right? The Germans are trying to say that the Germans warned them and warned them and warned them. They took out ads in the newspaper saying, do not get on ocean liners headed for Britain because we're going to sink them because they are actually taking arms and supplies in the bottom of passenger ships and throwing civilians on top of them and selling them across and then pretending to be innocent. That's what the Germans are trying to say. And in German right there, it says Geschäft über alles, which is German for business above all. Okay? What is actually causing the death of these people? Is it the Germans? According to the Germans, it's business. It's American and British greed. All right? Now, if you look at the other side and you were to look closely, what you would see is a sinking ship. But can anybody see the plane, the cannons, the guns that are sinking with the ship? Okay? What they're essentially saying is that we sunk a ship that was being used as an implement for war. But here's what happened. There was a British spy in Germany. And originally Carl Goetz made about 100 of these, okay? Which is why that first batch of 100 is worth a whole lot of money, okay? He made about 100 of these, and he was trying to say that the Americans and the British were greedy people that caused the death of the people on the Lusitania, okay? But the British spy is going to sneak one of these coins out and take it back to Britain and take it back to the United States, and they're going to reprint thousands of these things to say, this is how the Germans feel about their mighty achievement. They're trying to say that the Germans are absolutely brutal and heartless and cold, and they need to be defeated. And when evil rises up, good has to rise up against it, okay? Essentially, what I want you to begin to understand is how we could possibly ever arrive here, okay? How did we get here? So here we go. We had George Creel, who was in charge of the Committee on Public Information. George Creel is actually the one that is going to be the one that is in charge of basically running an organization that helps to brainwash the United States into moving from isolationism into being in support of the war. How do we get from I didn't raise my boy to be a soldier to over there? How do we get there? The CPI is in charge of that. We're going to send out, you'll notice the flyer here, the Committee on Public Information. We're going to send out hundreds of official government messengers, but they don't look like that, okay? They just look like really well-dressed people who you would want to listen to. And what they do, they're smart enough to know that your attention span is about that long, and they were called 4-minute men. And they would go and find, anytime there was going to be a large crowd gathering, okay, and they would go and stand up in the middle of that crowd, and they had a 4-minute message already prepared of why the people need to be behind the war effort, okay? The 4-minute men. And so you'd get mass persuasion taking place here by sending those kind of people out. It does matter. They're going to make films, and I showed you this last week, right? And these films all indicate that we and our allies are the good guys, but they're also going to say that the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians, our enemies, are purely evil, okay? In order to get really good at war, we have to get really good at dehumanizing our enemy, okay? And that is important, okay? In any other circumstance, would we ever say that the Russians are good guys? No, we've never believed the Russians to be good guys. They're always the bad guys. Have you not ever watched any TV ever, okay? You always have to have the Russians that have a British accent for some reason, and they're always the bad guy in every movie you've ever watched. Am I wrong? Okay? I'm just saying, under Four Flags, Pershing's Crusaders, we're making movies to do this. We're also now going to start making posters. Now, these posters, I'm just telling you right now, man, there's a little phrase that your generation has kicked out. You guys heard the phrase dog whistle before? Yeah? You know what this is? You know, the dog whistle. You guys watched the debate last week by chance?
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you if you did, okay? But it was terrible. It was embarrassing to be an American, okay? For the first time in my life, Lee Greenwood could not possibly sing in the background of my life, you know? It's what it is.
Yeah, I watched like a little bit of it and then I got tired of it.
One of the things that kept being said by Joe Biden about Donald Trump is he says, you keep using all of these racist dog whistles, okay? Just throwing that out there, okay? It's what Biden was loving against Trump. I'm not telling you I agree with one side over the other. I'm just telling you what was said, okay? Racist dog whistles. Here's what we have, okay? Do we see what we've done here? What essentially is this poster of?
Like a King Kong type figure. You know?
Yes, a King Kong type figure, a huge giant ape, gorilla, monkey thing, okay? How do you know it's German?
The hat.
It's wearing the helmet, Okay, notice he's carrying a big giant stick that says Kultur, which is the German word for essentially culture, because that's what your cognition would tell you there. But essentially, it's the German way of life. That's an important word for Germany. Okay, he's carrying German culture with him. Okay, what has he taken? He's taken a woman. What kind of woman?
A white woman.
A very white woman. Okay? What we've done here is we've taken an ape-like figure, and the thing that is at threat is white womanhood. Notice in this particular poster that the vile thing that this monkey has already done is expose this woman's breasts. Do we see this? Okay? Like, this is what's called a racist dog whistle. All right? To steal from Joe Biden a little bit. Not that I would ever want to do that in the other circumstances. Okay? It's a dog whistle. Let me show you some stuff. Okay? This is the original statue. Okay? Back before King Kong was ever a movie, it was a piece of art. Okay? And do you see what this big monkey is threatening? White womanhood. And do we notice that she is also exposed? White womanhood. How about now? You know what this is from? It's a movie. It's the very first movie ever truly made in the United States. No?
Something racist.
I'm about to give you some bonus points if you can be the first one to Google it. It was the first movie ever viewed in the White House. Woodrow Wilson himself wrote a part of the reaction to this thing. No?
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. You know what the Birth of a Nation is actually about? It is about the rise of the KKK after the Civil War ended. D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And at the same time, okay, at the same time that this is taking place, I want to say the movie was released in like 1912, something like that. Okay? Huh? 15. There you go. It's the middle of World War I. How about that? Go figure. Okay? At the same time that this movie is being made, the essence of the movie itself, and if I were to show you clips of it, you would see what I'm talking about, but I don't really have time to do that because this is a college class and I can't slow down and do all the things I normally do in a junior level class, right? It's the rise of the KKK after the Civil War because it was necessary, because these brutal, ignorant savages were a threat to the nation. And do you know what they're actually the biggest threat to?
What?
Specifically?
White women.
White womanhood. In the movie's most pivotal scene, and I could show you this lusty black man constantly trying to go after white women, okay, is chasing a white woman through the woods, and her husband is valiantly trying to search for them because, you know, he knows this is happening and he cannot find her anywhere. And she ends up running right up next to a cliff, and she gets right to the edge of the cliff, and the black man keeps coming at her and keeps coming at her, and finally she throws herself off a cliff rather than be taken and ravaged by this lusty black man, okay? And we see that this woman is going to be down there, and somehow she survives this fall just long enough to you know, in her dying breaths, tell her husband she loves him. And it was this pivotal scene that makes you go, oh, how sad. And black people, black men should never be around a white woman ever. Okay? Do we see this? Racist dog whistle. Yeah? Like this is how you can use an iconic image. And just so we're clear here, the particular artist, photographer that Vogue used here has done this before. He likes to borrow images. The thing is he doesn't actually ever tell anybody what image he's borrowing. But if you look, he has intentionally built the old World War I poster into this. This is just, that is Gisele Bundchen or something like that, right? Tom Brady's wife? Yeah? Okay? And she's on the cover of Vogue with LeBron James. Do we notice the look on LeBron James's face? Do we notice the weapon that he is holding is what he used to bring sway over the American people? Do we notice that he's dressed the same, that she is dressed the same, okay? They've intentionally done this. If I could just throw this at you here, okay? Let me give you another one.
Did they know that when they were doing the shoot?
No,
I thought
No.
they were mad.
had no clue. And it became quite the outrage, okay?
What happened when they figured it out?
Well, LeBron James tried to like play it off because honestly he looks a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like he's at fault here or Giselle's at fault here. I mean, the photographer just did a thing, right? But it's a dog whistle. And in a sense, I think the photographer is trying to push things by putting the image together and everything like that. It's just that whenever you see the original image, it seems like he's trying very hard to be a racist. Okay. Here's another one. This is Horatio Greenought's. This is Daniel Boone saves his family, right? And what we see here is that the savage, okay, is being held back by Daniel Boone so Daniel Boone can protect his family. Does everybody see that? Okay. These are images that were already kind of in the American mind, okay? This is the painting that that was made in response to the statue, if you will, right? And so again, we can kind of see the savage is being held back by Daniel Boone, who's protecting his family, okay? Daniel Boone is protecting white womanhood, and this is a part of the thing, okay? We see it? This is the second most famous World War I poster, okay? Halt the Hun, okay? Do we see that the American soldier has replaced Daniel Boone? The savage has been replaced by the German, and white womanhood is still at stake. All right. Again, if you can remember our discussion from last week, ring a bell, feed the dog. Ring a bell, feed the dog. Ring a bell, feed the dog. All you have to do is, in the American people's mind, change the old bad guy for the new bad guy, and you've already sold your product. You have to play on fears, okay? This matters, and this has been a thing for a while now, okay? Again, did I tell you who studied this? It's Adolf Hitler that's studying this in order to figure out how to do it to his own people, and he's very, very effective at it, okay? And so we move from I didn't raise my boy to be a soldier to over there. Follow? All right. We are going to also be, at this time, we're going to have to sell this message on the home front. And how we sell this message on the home front absolutely matters, okay? It absolutely matters. So we're going to plant victory gardens, okay? We're going to plant victory gardens. We're going to get the women involved at home, because if we keep the people on the home front in support of the war, and it's the most American thing you can do, then we'll keep supporting, and we'll get through this thing and we'll save the world, okay? We're going to have a bunch of measures, some of which, just to be honest with you, they don't do a whole lot, but they make you feel like we're doing a lot, right? Like we have Wheatless Wednesdays, okay? Meatless Tuesdays, and everybody every year always says, why in the world would it not be Meatless Mondays? Because we need that alliteration for our life to work right, but whatever. It was Wheatless Wednesdays and Meatless Tuesdays. We're growing fuel victory gardens, and we see that these kind of things are helping to contribute. Do we have a food shortage? Absolutely we do. Because right now, you can't grow crops in Europe. Why? Because there's a war going on, and instead of using fields for crops, we're digging giant trenches through them and destroying everything, okay? We are going to have to grow enough food for the whole world. During World War I, we're going to pass some amendments, and amendments are something that rarely happens in American history. So why in the world do we have a whole pile of World War I amendments? Well, the very first one we end up getting, okay, again, Woodrow Wilson going to war is essentially progressivism going to war. One of the things that progressives have been trying to achieve for years has been a progressive income tax, or a graduated income tax. Do you know who ends up financing the United States World War I effort? The top 10%, and especially the top 1% of the United States. The top tax bracket in the United States, after we pass the progressive income tax, they're going to finance 90% of our war. Okay? 90% of their money. Okay? If they make $1 million a year, how much do they actually get to take home and use? Do a quick little math here. They get to take home $100,000 out of their $1 million they make a year. Is that crazy? Would you not lose your stake of mind? Like, I'm making $1 million a year. No, I'm making $100,000 a year right now. We're going to use the progressive income tax. What's the 17th Amendment? Direct election of senators. Okay? We're going to achieve that. The 18th Amendment. Yeah, that?
Yeah, prohibition.
Yes, it's prohibition. Okay? What do we use to make alcohol? Wheat, barley, oats, and hops. Okay? These are all grains that we need to be using to feed people. We cannot be using those grains for alcohol. So we had World War I as our excuse, and we're already achieving something that progressives wanted to achieve anyways. So all you gotta do is couch it in a war term, and you can achieve. Never waste a good crisis. Have we been talking about this since the first day of class? What about the 19th Amendment? Huh? It's women's suffrage. Okay? Who are the ones that are actually on the home front? It's women. Even though Woodrow Wilson did not, he's a progressive, but he did not want women to have the right to vote, okay? He's going to be okay with this because he needs to sell the war to the people to achieve all the other things, right? Everything gets couched in these terms, all right? We're also going to be doing other things domestically to make sure that we hate Germans, okay? Germans and social radicals. You're going to want to know this. This is 2 different test questions, okay? The ones that are persecuted most on the home front are Germans and social radicals. We're going to try to get rid of anything German in our country, all right? We stopped listening to classical music. Does anybody know why? Name a classical composer. Bach.
No.
Beethoven. No? What do all these composers have to what? Good. What do they all have in common? They're all Germans. Okay? It was easy to get us to stop drinking beer. Does anybody know why?
Because beer is German.
Beer, B-I-E-R, is a German word. Okay? And furthermore, who are the beer manufacturers in this country? Budweiser. Busch. What do they all have in common? They're German. Okay? We won't eat hamburgers. Does anybody know why?
It's like the most American thing. Yeah, totally.
Except for Hamburger is named after Hamburg, which is a city in Germany. So we're going to rename them. We're not going to get rid of hamburgers because we are freaking American. Okay? We're not going to get rid of hamburgers. We're just going to rename them. You know what we call them now? Liberty steak.
No.
Okay? How about this one? You ready? Sauerkraut. Is there a more German word than sauerkraut? Okay? You know what we call it now?
Nasty.
Sauerkraut is awesome. You take that back right now.
It tastes good on hot dogs.
It tastes great on bratwurst. Okay, we can't eat that either, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Sauerkraut is now called Liberty cabbage. Okay? We used to, okay? You know what the top second languages that were taught in high schools all across America? French and German. Guess what? We're not even going to teach their stupid language anymore. Okay? They're a bunch of savages. We don't want to teach their language. Okay? Everything we're doing is an outrage against these things. Okay? All right. I'm going to skip that for now. Matter of fact, what I want to do is I want to...
You said the most persecuted on the home front was Germans and what?
Social radicals. Socialists, communists, okay? Anarchists, matter of fact, all three of those isms right there, we're going to be thoroughly against in the aftermath of World War I, because our soldiers kind of went over there, right, and saw the aftermath. Socialism, communism, and anarchism. Because those three isms kind of work together to be essentially what was happening in Southeastern Europe that caused the war. Essentially, why does Russia drop out of the war?
Because there's an uprising of Bolsheviks.
Because of the Bolshevik Revolution. Who actually was kind of in the middle of all that? Germany, because they snuck out Lenin and shipped him over there, right? Okay, we're going to be very, very, very thoroughly against that. Okay, why is that not working? Let me get back into here. A couple other things before I shut up for the day.
That was not me, don't
Yeah, that wasn't.
Over there.
That was.
It was Hannah?
That was not me.
It was Dana.
You see how you looked at me?
What is, I made an assumption, sorry. What is the Great Migration? You learned about it last year in Coach Ed's class.
Where the blacks moved up towards like Detroit.
Okay. Southern blacks in the old American South. They're no longer slaves. What are they? They're free, but they are children of God. They are freed slaves. What did they do for a living?
They work.
They pick cotton. But now what do we call them? Sort of? Sharecroppers. Very good. There we go. All right. They're sharecroppers. We essentially, do you not remember putting this together that we actually kind of have like sharecropping plus tenant farming, plus the crop lien system, plus convict leasing actually ends up being something very, very, very similar to slavery, right? Life in the South is no better after the Civil War. So what did they end up doing? During World War I, all of these white guys that are over there fighting for our country, they've left their jobs in the factories. And there's a need for us to build a whole bunch of things at the factory level for us to fight, correct? So what do we need to do? Well, we need to get workers. And blacks from the South are going to go where? You said Detroit. What is Detroit essentially? Northern?
Midwest.
Industrial cities, okay? Northern industrial cities, but it's not actually going to be only northern industrial cities. There's going to be a number of places further west, but there's still going to be industrial cities that it's going to be drawing all of these southern blacks into their areas. All right, this is going to be pretty stinking important. All right, how many of you guys have been paying attention to what we've been learning about Tulsa through the middle of COVID? Anybody been paying attention to that? Okay, so right after World War I, and it's as a result of what happened in the Great Migration, okay? Right after World War I, how about Red Summer, 1919? You know about that? You know about the kid in Chicago, started the Chicago race riots, something like that? The kid that was just like on a raft on the Great Lakes, and a bunch of white guys, he had accidentally like floated over in front of the white beach instead of being by the black beach, okay? He's out there on this little wooden raft. And this black kid's out there playing with his buddies and everything like that. And a bunch of white guys on the beach started grabbing rocks and throwing it at them. And what ends up happening there, the kids think it's a game. It's not necessarily a game. One of these guys launches one of the things, hits the kid right in the temple. Okay, he dies, drowns, the whole 9 yards. And they get the kid to the beach, and his parents are there, and they're all freaking out and everything like that. The cops show up, and you know who they arrested? The parents. They didn't arrest the guy that killed the black kid. They arrested the parents. And that kind of injustice started the race riot, okay? In which crazy amounts of black people are going to die in Chicago as a result of these race riots. Because every time cops show up, and who do they kill? They show up and they kill black people. What happened in Tulsa? Tulsa race riots, 1921, 1922. We were literally just discovering the fuller story of this summer because we've now done some excavations. And you know what we just now found out this summer happened all the way back in that time? Is that they took, okay, a bunch of racist cops in Tulsa, took and killed a whole bunch of black people in Tulsa. And we kind of knew this had happened, but we couldn't have any proof of it. And they buried them in a big giant mass grave in Tulsa. And we just now found that sucker this summer. And the details of it are just now coming out. Okay? The Great Migration is going to end up having some pretty raunchy effects. I know it's easy to look and try to see what's happening in the media and get this kind of like this preconceived notion of what's actually happening. Expand your minds just a little bit, okay? If you can have a little bit of nuance in your life, I'm just telling you, you'll interpret these events way differently. You'll think through them instead of automatically saying, no, my side says we're innocent, so I'm saying we're innocent, because everybody thinks that, right? What's happening in these instances, okay? Why are NFL guys, NBA guys, whatever else, running around saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe? If you look at some of these situations, and you look at one at a time, in some of these cases, all right, absolute police brutality has taken place. And in some of these cases, why in the world would you be resisting arrest, bringing out a weapon? Why in the world would you be doing these kind of things? If you're going to do that, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I mean, what we do is we lump all of them into one thing. Okay, again, use nuance in your life a little bit. Okay, the migration is going to lead Southern blacks into northern industrial cities like never before. But what's going to happen is these blacks are going to be living in their own little, and please don't let this sound like a racist word. It's an actual sociological term, but they're going to be going to their own little hoods. Okay, they're going to go to this part of the city that's going to be primarily all black people. All right, they're going to have an enclave of black people in each part of every city. And frequently what ends up happening is each of these little neighborhoods ends up taking on its own, like, very uniquely black culture. Okay, what one do we have in New York City? Huh?
There's Bronx, there's Harlem, there's.
Okay, there we go. Globetrotters, come on now, right now, right? It's Harlem, all right? What is the growth and appreciation of black art and culture that happens right after World War I? You ever heard of the Harlem Renaissance before? No? Langston Hughes, a guy from Joplin, Missouri, ends up being a major figure in this?
Yeah.
Okay? Louis Armstrong, the appreciation of jazz. Like, we have all kinds of things that grow out of this. But again, this is starting here as a genuinely World War I type issue, okay? And all of these, if you look at the picture here, you got all these black people going to train stations all at the same time, and they're all essentially moving to these northern industrial cities at essentially the same time, right? And it does matter, okay? How about this one? What's the situation here? I think it's a what? Bunch of white guys hanging out, right? Can you tell that there's a soldier or two in the crowd? Can you see that a little bit?
Oh, right there.
Yeah, see the guy right there in the front? Social event, okay? It's like maybe, I don't know, town dance, something. These guys are pretty happy, whatever. No? How about this group? No? How about it? Yeah? That is very genuinely awful. And again, who got the last set of bonus points? Was that you? All right, I did not write that down. I need to write that down. Figure out who this man is. Okay? Figure out who that man is. Be the first one to send me an email and tell me kind of generally what happened to him. I'll take the very first 5 people that can do it. Okay? This would have been. I'm going to give you too much information. I just can't do that. Just a general. How about a decade? It happened. It happened during the race riots. This one specifically in Nebraska, Omaha, I believe.
Will Brown. Yeah,
Willie Brown.
It is Will Brown. Shoot me an email. Each of you that do it, I'll give you the bonus points. Tell me what happened to him. Have you Googled enough to figure out what he did that was so wrong and awful and bad and evil that he needs to be burned at the stake?
He was lynched by white people after being accused of rape.
Yes. And if you get into the actual details of the crime, okay, let's just say, for instance, that he's actually guilty of this rape of you want to take a guess? A white woman, right? Let's say he's guilty of this. Does he deserve what happened to him here? No, under no circumstances.
I don't like that.
And how about how about when you zoom back out and see these guys that are so proud of their achievement?
And look at that little kid.
Yeah.
It's not PG-13.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
That's NC-17. We better hurry.
I'll probably do 7 of it. How about that? That work. Movement of tens of thousands of Southern blacks north during World War I resulted in. Want to take a guess?
Race riots.
Race riots. Okay. Red Summer 1919. It's going to be all a part of that. And each city's going to have their own version. Tulsa had their version. Chicago had their version. Omaha, as you saw here with Willie Brown, they had their version. Some serious stuff. 2 constitutional amendments adopted in part because of wartime influence were the 18th, which was what?
Prohibition.
18th is prohibition. 19th is women's suffrage. Good. There were some people called conscientious objectors. Typically, they are Quakers because Quakers are unique in their Christian belief because they are very thoroughly against violence. And so Quakers did not believe that they should be signing up and going to war. They don't believe that violence, even during wartime, is an appropriate thing. And so you had some conscientious objectors. One of those is going to be a guy by the name of Sergeant York, Alvin York, who is a conscientious objector. Originally, conscientious objector, he ends up going ahead and fighting anyways, and he ends up being one of the biggest heroes of World War I, and so that's going to be used again, and you'll know about that when we get to World War II. The primary commander of American forces during World War I was a guy by the name of Black Jack Pershing. You're going to want to know that name as well. And I'm not really ready to get into the war itself just yet. Anything else here? All right. I think that will pretty much settle us for today. So we will, let me go ahead and close out.